The easiest way to determine how long you can dive and then ascend within the time limits is a dive computer. This is also the most expensive. Dive computers use theoretical and mathematical models to determine the time limits for the current depth and displays it for the diver. The big advantage with a dive computer is that it constantly recalculates as your depth changes during your dive. A dive computer does not count all of your dive time as having occurred at your deepest depth, as the dive tables do. A dive computer is an electronic device that can fail without warning. If a dive computer fails, your only option is to surface at the rate of ascent specified by the manufacturer and make a 3 to 5 minute precautionary decompression stop at 5 meters or 15 feet. Then you must stop diving for the period recommended by the manufacturer. You can't start with a fresh computer or use dive tables because you have an unknown amount of residual nitrogen in your system. When a dive computer is turned on, it must initialize itself. This is a process where the operating program is checked and loaded into the computer's memory. When this happens, the computer typically runs through a self-diagnostic test and checks all its functions. Some computers must be turned on with a switch before you enter the water. Other computers turn on automatically when you enter the water. If you must turn your computer on with a switch, do not turn it on at depth or after you started your descent, because your dive will not be recorded accurately. All computers can scroll before diving and between dives. Between dives, the computer accounts for your residual nitrogen and the time you've been on the surface. It shows your allowable maximum dive time for your next dive for each depth programmed in the computer. When a computer is in a dive mode, it will display data such as your current depth, maximum depth, water temperature, actual dive time, and the time you have left at your current depth. As you approach decompression status, computers give you a visual warning message. When this occurs, you must begin your ascent immediately, but at the proper rate. When your dive computer displays a ceiling, it means that you have an obligation to decompress. The ceiling depth is the depth of your first decompression stop. You must not ascend above the depth of that ceiling. If you require more than one stop, your computer will display another ceiling. An air-integrated computer will show you the amount of air left in your cylinder, as well as the amount of air time you have left. All dive computers will give you a warning signal when you exceed the ascent rate. Anytime you violate your computer's ascent rate, you increase your risk of DCS. Always monitor your computer carefully during ascent. If you ever see an out-of-range message, you've exceeded your computer's maximum depth range. Begin your ascent immediately and follow your computer's instructions to complete your decompression and ascent. During your surface interval, your computer will give you credit for off-gassing. You'll also be able to see the maximum time allowed at any depth, increasing as you stay out of the water. A surface interval of at least 1 hour is still recommended even if you are using a computer. Most computers will tell you when it is safe to fly based on their mathematical model. Even if you use a computer, you still need to log your dives. On most computers, you can call up log mode and see stored dive information. Other important rules when using a dive computer include a buddy cannot share one computer. Each diver must have their own computer. If you have been diving on tables and want to start diving with a computer, you must wait 24 hours after your last dive. If your computer must be turned on and off manually, do not turn it off until it indicates that off-gassing is complete, and do not make repetitive dives in one day to depths greater than 30 meters or 100 feet.